So, this is a little sermon about how if you're not a Trump supporter, you can stay sane during the coming Trump administration and at the same time serve your cause and help keep your worst fears about the Trump administration from coming true. Today's lesson is don't feed the trolls. In particular, do not feed the troll in chief, Donald Trump. Do not shower him with the indignation that he actually wants to be showered with. Before I explain what I mean, I want to emphasize that you should, of course, vocally and vigorously oppose any policies you oppose. And also, the time may come when we need to express indignation big time, especially if he gives free rein to his authoritarian impulses and tries to subvert the Constitution. If you ask me, he's already tried to do that once in the aftermath of the 2020 election. If he tries to do it again, tries some kind of power grab, the time may come when we need to get extremely vocal and active and indignant. But in the meanwhile, let's not strengthen the amount of support he'll be getting from his supporters in such a situation. I want to quote something from an economist who lived through the administration of a left-wing populist authoritarian in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. He actually wrote this in 2016, right after Trump was elected. His name is Andres Miguel Rondon. And what he said was that you have to remember that the kind of populism that Chavez and Trump engage in, quote, can survive only amid polarization. It works through the unending vilification of a cartoonish enemy. Never forget that you're that enemy. Trump needs you to be the enemy, just like all religions need a demon. Now, again, that doesn't mean you don't oppose Trump vocally, you don't speak out against the policies that you oppose. It does mean you try not to fit into his narrative the way he wants to fit his opponents into his narrative. And one way you do fit into that narrative is if you overreact to things he says. Trump is really good at saying things that get the opposition to go, oh my God, did you hear what he said? This is horrible. He should be in prison, while his supporters are looking at it and going, this seems not totally crazy to me. And then Trump can, of course, go, you see, they're crazy. It's fake news. It's disinformation. It's part of the conspiracy of coastal elites to distort everything I say. I mean, it just works beautifully for him, and he's really, really good at it. I think at this point, it's so practiced that he doesn't have to think about it. There was a recent example of what I mean during the election campaign. Trump was talking about Liz Cheney, of course, daughter of Dick Cheney, both of them famous hawks, especially Dick Cheney, who was vice president under Bush. And Trump said the following. He said, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face. Okay, the Washington Post, in covering this, used this headline, quote, Trump embraces violent rhetoric, suggests Liz Cheney should have, and then they had little quotes, guns trained on her face. And then Kamala Harris said that this was disqualifying. Okay, this statement alone disqualified Trump from being president. And what Trump was saying was a lot like things I've said about neocons like Bill Kristol. I put it a little less graphically. I've said, if they're so enthusiastic about these wars, why don't they go fight them themselves? This is something that's commonly said. Yes, he said it more vividly and graphically. And frankly, I think that's part of his strategy. I mean, I think the Washington Post headline is like literally inaccurate. He didn't really suggest that she should have guns trained on her face because he opposes the wars in which he was imagining that, right? He was saying, look, if she's so enthusiastic about this, she should sign up. This is not that bizarre a thing to say. Although, again, being Trump, he put it in this way that almost ensures overreaction. That's part of his genius, is he gets people to overreact. And yet his base is going to look at this and say, he's just saying, if you love these wars, go fight them, right? You hear that all the time. Also, this gave Trump a chance to repeat that message to his base and to others. When they ask him about this, he says, I'm just saying she's a war hawk. She'd be the first to chicken out in a war, and he kind of moderates it a little and then gets it out there again so his base can just be reminded of how reasonable he is, and his opponents can go, oh, that's not what he said. It just goes on and on. The moral of the story is, do not arouse the defensive, protective, supportive instincts of his supporters by subjecting him to what they think, not implausibly really, is like an unfair siege. There are plenty of things to legitimately besiege him about, I'm just saying, be careful. If you're on social media, go look at what he actually said. If it's like on the edge and seems like one of these things that's designed to provoke overreaction by you, just let it go. Because when you spread things on social media, you're feeding the algorithm and you're getting the things out there that often he wants to get out there. And by the way, if you do what I'm saying and are less reactive, I think you'll find that you have more equanimity, more peace of mind. You're happier, you're less freaked out, you're less agitated, you're less full of anxiety. So this is a case where doing what's good for yourself is good for your cause, and I think good for the country and for the world. Because I think the fewer favors we do for Donald Trump, the better off the world will be. And if we deploy our opposition to him with kind of careful consideration, we will be better positioned to amp up the pressure should it really matter big time. Like, should we need to get out on the streets and protest some power reach? If we're a little calm and considered in the meanwhile, he will have less support in pushing back against that. So I would say, in the meanwhile, keep your powder dry, keep your peace of mind. We're playing a long game here, and we have to be careful and smart about it. Okay, so that's today's sermon. If it makes sense to you, I hope you will subscribe to the Non-Zero newsletter, subscribe to the Non-Zero podcast, and of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, smash the like button. Thanks.